A lot of legends, a lot of the stories around Chupacabra have him possibly being a government experiment gone wrong or an alien creature. You discount all those other facets of the story?
Well, that's possible considering that the government experiment. I thought that the Chupacabra was seen in New Mexico, so close to Roswell, perhaps.
So Chupacabra, the original sighting was in Puerto Rico where there was a spacecraft crash, supposedly. They do have their own Roswell-type site there. And that is where the legend first occurred, was in Puerto Rico. And later on, there was a TV show called Christina where they talked about it. Okay. And then that was broadcast on Telemundo, so it was seen throughout all different areas. And then suddenly the story starts coming up in New Mexico and Mexico and there.
Okay.
So how do you feel about, what do you think of the possibilities of that being an accurate depiction of the history?
I think there could be more than one Chupacabra. I mean, I'm assuming they're breeding, right? So. Right. Yes, it's not just like one Bigfoot. I think there was more than one Yeti as well, so it would make sense that there's multiple sightings in different areas.
Hidden within the shadows, throughout tales that span generations, monsters exist in many forms. Explore the folklore, embrace its most important lasting features, and delve into information of the unexpected. These are monster myths. What you know about monsters could save a life, possibly even your own. I need you to help me inform the masses. I'm Kephen Sting, and tonight's Monster Myths features the Chupacabra. Within the last few months, I've conducted dozens of interviews and received a load of emails and comments from people about monsters. And there's a particular creature that keeps coming up. Check out a few of the email questions I got. Now, Kellett, 1942, from Cincinnati, Ohio, wants to know if Chupacabras are monsters or aliens. And Amy V. from Tucson, Arizona, wrote, which is more dangerous? The Chupacabras from Puerto Rico or from Mexico? Now, those are both good questions. Seems I'm not alone in this research, but what we need is a good place to begin. For those of you who don't know, the Chupacabra is loosely translated from the Spanish as goat sucker. It's a cryptid, that is, a creature of unknown origin. In the mid-90s, sightings were accompanied by massive slaughters of dead livestock, all the animals with mysterious puncture wounds and their blood drained from their bodies. According to some of the early reports from these farms, the cages for the livestock were locked tight, and whatever creature had later attacked them, therefore, had to have figured out a way to unlock the cages. Think about that. That gives us a clue as to the Chupacabra's dexterity and the possibility of higher intelligence. Initial sightings describe the creature with a bat-like face with red eyes, and much like a gargoyle, it had a lipless mouth and vicious teeth. There are also these sharp spikes running down its neck and spine. I can't imagine this is anything you'd want to pet. Many descriptions even include webbed membranes along the arms and rib cage, much like wings. Now, the Chupacabra is identified as up to 4 feet in height with a monkey-like body. However, there is some debate as to whether or not it is more reptilian or canine.
I believe he is part reptile, a lizard on his hind legs, but he has fur as well. So it looks like a monkey reptile, if I recall.
I've always kind of envisioned him as sort of like a rat-looking thing, kind of like a 3-foot, 4-foot tall rat with a big tooth kind of through the middle, and I'm not sure if that comes from artist renditions or what, but that's sort of my...
From the Princess Bride?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It seems to me like it's got a longer beak, per se, like a dog beak kind of, like a canine beak, and then the rest of it's kind of slinky and more like a cat, springy kind of thing is the way I've kind of imagined it.
I would think bat or something, because there's not, I mean, it does both, so it probably has a mixture of the two.
Very furry with big fangs and not actually too big, maybe mid-size, like the size of a little bit bigger than a cow.
Now, sources claim the Chupacabra was first witnessed in 1995, just southeast of San Juan, within the it was the Caribbean National Forest in the Yunque area of Puerto Rico. Now, many stories refer to a woman, a Madeline Tolentino, who months after the first sightings claimed that she saw them in a town called Canovanas. According to her, there had been a series of atrocities where as many as 150 farm animals had been killed, scarred with puncture wounds and drained of blood. Now, throughout 1995, the attacks continued. Over 1,000 reports of these mysterious animal deaths had ultimately occurred in the area during that year. Now, because of the violent reports, investigators considered everything as a possible cause, including it not being creatures at all, but a satanic cult. So as the livestock slaughtering continued on, so did the growing fear and superstition surrounding these events. By March of 1996, there was a TV talk show on a Univision network called Christina. And there was a segment on a particular show that highlighted the information of the Chupacabra. Now, this is important because it was the first cross-cultural exposure the cryptid received, and it is suspected that this show, being aired on multiple continents, appears to have caused the migration of the Chupacabra legend from Puerto Rico all the way to Mexico and parts of the United States. Folklorists believe that this is one of the first indications of folklore spreading through the modern electronic age, with the Chupacabra essentially becoming the first monster helped by the internet and satellite television. So is it just the folklore that travels distances, or are we dealing with something more substantial? I've managed to find that the first Chupacabra sighting in the United States actually occurred in Miami, Florida, accompanied by the livestock getting attacked, the puncture wounds, and the whole shebang. This was soon followed by many similar sightings in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and northern Mexico. Now that the stories of the Chupacabra have transferred from Puerto Rico, maybe it's just me, but it seems that the appearance of the cryptid has changed also. Numerous sightings in the southern United States and Mexico recently have been photographed. Now, there's a certain culprit that is deemed to be a Chupacabra, but to be honest, they look like diseased wild dogs or a crossbreed of some kind. Further investigation found these animals to appear to have a form of mange or skin fungus that might explain their appearance. But when did the starving dog types become Chupacabras, and what happened to the original description as identified in Puerto Rico? Well, that's what I want to know. From the many accounts that I've read, the term Chupacabras seem to have become synonymous with any livestock mutilations. This is whether there are puncture wounds or not. It means that the term itself is used to identify any livestock attack. Now, this could account for a number of false reports and resulting stories that can be explained away. With all that said, I do understand the concept that there are different kinds of Chupacabras. I mean, there have been several explanations for them, and none of them have been altogether disproved. One theory is that it is some kind of a giant bat. Another is that it could be from extraterrestrial origins. Then there's the theory that it's a supernatural beast, conjured up somehow. Or it could be a shapeshifter of some sort. And then finally, it could be a top secret genetic experiment. Now, I'm finding enough folklore to at least speculate any of these answers as plausible, but I'd like to know what people in your dimension think. How long do you think chupacabras have been around?
Assuming they've been around at all.
Why assuming you don't believe in them?
I don't know enough either way to know. I know that it's a wonderful bar in Seattle, El Chupacabra, and they're kind of a cool, mystical creature. I assume they've been around for thousands of years if they've been around.
Now, some legends involving Chupacabra have it being a government experiment gone wrong, or possibly an alien creature. You think there's any credence to those stories?
If I can't disprove it, I don't say it's not true. But you never know. There's a lot of things running around this earth that we can't explain.
I don't think the government's that smart, and it's not like got out. It could be romantic that it got out of some cage somewhere that they created it.
Ooh, it potentially could be an alien creature, for sure. But I don't think it's a government experiment, no.
Precautions do you think farmers can take to protect their animals against chupacabras?
Throat guards would be the first kind of thing. I feel like they would go for the jugular, But in reality, honestly, cameras. It seems like I haven't seen much video footage, so that's a good way to keep them out, right? They seem to be very aware of
that is an interesting
being published.
idea. Now, there are a lot of reports that say that chupacabras may have the higher intelligence and dexterity to be able to open gates and get in. What else do you think a farmer could do?
Possibly, yeah. Dig really big holes and put them inside of there so they can live, so they don't get attacked.
That is an excellent idea.
I would say electric fences would probably be the best bet.
What would you personally do to defend yourself against chupacabra?
I don't know. I think I try and just make friends with it. Yeah, I'm really good at that. I make friends with monsters.
Now, I personally get a lot out of these interviews, but in this case, it's hard to come up with very many answers. As for a possible purpose to these myths, it's been said that these stories originated as warnings to ranchers to keep their animals locked up and protected. It could even extend that warning to adults to protect their children at all costs. Who knows? Perhaps its only purpose is to scare the bejesus out of folks. Many of these tales have been attempted to be explained away, most pretty convincingly too, which is discouraging, unless we look deeper at one of our options, that being an extraterrestrial connection. Puerto Rico had its own version of Area 51, the Roosevelt Roads Naval Station. And in 1957, there was a report of a spacecraft crash landing. It's weird, huh? Now, this event was quickly hushed. However, it was said that the military accessed this UFO and found a number of dead bodies of otherworldly creatures, the chupacabras. Now, I'm no mathematician, but this crash supposedly occurred in 1957. But then there weren't any documented sightings of the chupacabras until the mid-90s. They are over 3 decades apart, the UFO crash and the later livestock mutilations of Puerto Rico. What was going on at that naval base during those decades? And why the sudden appearance of the chupacabras just before the new millennium? Well, I guess I'm leaning on the side of those who believe in the extraterrestrial theory. Or at the very least, I believe there's more to this story. The way I see it, there's only 3 possible outcomes left to consider. 1, that there was a spacecraft that crash-landed, and in response there was a government cover-up, which would intimate that the chupacabras are from another planet. 2, chupacabras are the result of government experiments gone wrong. One might even conclude that the naval base originally had something to do with it. Did the creatures escape captivity? Or 3, that there were government experiments, but with sinister plans behind them. That the Chupacabras were engineered to be aggressive, destructive beasts to be unleashed upon the landscape. So basically, we've got some scenarios to consider. And all of them, no matter what you decide is the real story, introduce us to some pretty scary creatures. If I lived in a Chupacabra region, I might be tempted to carry around a couple chickens with me. That way, if I was confronted with one of these fearsome cryptids, I could fling the chicken away and make a run for it. Although, I guess it would also depend on whether you meant the Puerto Rican version or the northern Mexico version. Which do you think are the most dangerous? The first depiction is large and scaly, and I imagine it's got vampiric teeth within a set of strong jaws. That would be a dangerous customer. But I'm not so sure the other northern Mexico and Texas depictions seem like much more than a type of mange-infected dog or fox. Either way, I wouldn't want to get bit by one of them. So, is this a case of extraterrestrial involvement, or are we dealing with something that was designed in a lab somewhere? Let me know what you think in the comments sections below, or hit me up on social media. I mean, what do you think we're dealing with here? Regardless of our preferred explanation for the Chupacabra, it remains a popular creature in the cryptid world. With a little internet digging, you can find out that there are still sightings every so often. And when you think of why, it's not too hard to imagine these creatures existing. And it would be frightening to be in the presence of the monster, or several of them. Okay, inconstant readers and viewers, I admit I love to get your likes, but it's important that you share this information. I implore you to inform your family and friends, inform the masses. It could mean the difference between life or death to the right person in the wrong situation. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, and you'll want to make sure you don't miss a future episode. And if you press the little bell icon, you'll be alerted as soon as any new material is uploaded. Some monsters confront their prey head on, and others, you find out about their destruction only after it's too late. Stay aware out there, for you never know what could come knocking on your door. I'm Kephen Sting, and these are Monster Myths.